Wake up, Domonique. You're rubbing the sleep out of your eyes.
I mean, the camera's not even on. How you gonna sell me out right now? I was getting my mind right so that the people couldn't tell that I'm sleepy.
Breaking the
Goodness
fourth wall.
gracious. I'm not gonna tell the people that you're back to your tardy ways. I wasn't gonna tell them that.
How dare you?
Sold me out.
You have no proof of that. Hello, welcome to Debatable, a show that may have considered starting with college football before pivoting entirely because Bill Barnwell decided to make us smarter about what in the hell we're supposed to do with Brock Purdy now, Alabaster. Is that where we're starting? Where are we starting? Are we going to go Chiefs Bengals first?
We're going to start with good quarterbacks. So we're going to start with Chiefs Bengals. And my question to you all, do you feel like the better team won today between the Chiefs and the Bengals?
Cincinnati. I just want you to know that you're about to be triggered. I don't know what they're going to say. I just know them. And you're not going to be happy with it.
I will voice this complaint one more time. How can we have someone asking the questions and you're here too, Pablo, and refuse to answer any of the questions? If you're not going to ask them, you got to answer them too.
All right. I will be the brave soul to start by saying that the Bengals have to be considered better than the Chiefs. I don't know if that means they're a better team overall in the global sense.
Come on. What are we
but
doing
when
here?
it comes to comparing
I remember
two
why
teams,
you don't answer questions.
Okay.
Now I get why. Because you thread the coward's needle at every opportunity. You just
They've won 3 in a row against the Chiefs, and the question now is whether we can actually declare them categorically better. I'm putting a toe on there.
Yes.
Call Pablo Mattress Mac because he's couching these answers with
well done
nonsense.
Like Mattress Mac's got some guts to do a fake bet that no one knows that he can't lose.
How did I become the coward? I was making fun of you guys for being the coward. Now I'm the coward. This is why I hate you both.
I came on here last week, and when Domonique Foxworth said I should consider the Bengals as contenders, I said no. See what they do against the Chiefs. It pains me to say this, but Domonique Foxworth was correct. The Bengals were the better team in this game. This game was very narrowly matched. It was two very good teams playing very well, but the difference came down to the star receivers on each team and what they did with the game online, which fits another Domonique Foxworth corollary. Travis Kelce, who had a quiet game by his standards, fumbled the football away, handed the Bengals a short field for their game-winning touchdown. Jamar Chase, coming back from injury, ran through a 3rd and 5 tackle for a first down. T. Higgins, on the final meaningful play of the game, caught a pass, shot through a straw into his stomach for a game-sealing catch on 3rd and long. That was the difference in these games. The receivers who are stars for these teams, the Bengals came through, the Chiefs did not.
I love a situation where I can take a victory lap on a game that I chose the wrong team to win. Because I, too, thought that the Chiefs would win. But you're right. I do consider the Bengals better than I guess you did and a real contender. And one of my mottos for the season is how important a number one, a game-breaking receiver is. And we saw that the Chiefs needed that answer at some point. And as good as Travis Kelce is, it's hard for me, at least, to think about the impact that a tight end has on a defense, whereas Tyreek Hill would be scaring the bejesus out of everyone or making a big play. But in this game, it came down to what Bill said, that fumble, and also the fact that sometimes Joe Burrow is great and sometimes he throws it to great players. And the offensive line has gotten so much better. They're protecting him. And it seems like, despite the fact that they have some weaknesses on their defense, namely at corner, which was, I think, Bill's big reason for not respecting the Bengals as much. And I, as a corner, should have agreed with him. But I was like, nah, Eli Apple's the man. And they'll figure out a way to protect them with that defensive line. So, yeah, we have to
crown them.
They're better. I mean, how many times I understand, I'm completely comfortable with a team beating a team once and saying they're not actually better than them. But
3 times?
3 times in a row?
3 times in a row?
I feel like you're just a now if you don't accept it.
I fully agree. There's big behavior if you're not willing to say that the Bengals will beat the Chiefs in every sort of like, according to every piece of evidence that we have. But the question, right, and this is where the coward's needle enters the equation, is whether you think that the Bengals are now more likely to actually go and win the Super Bowl than the Chiefs. And I suppose there are two ways to attack that question. One way is to point out that they're going to have to probably beat the Chiefs, in which case, obviously, the answer is yes. But does this also feel like a styles make fights kind of a thing, right? Where this is a matchup problem more than it is a global superiority concern?
I would say it doesn't matter if it's a global superiority concern, if they're going to have to play the Chiefs along the way to the Super Bowl, because that seems to be a matchup where the Bengals should be favored. And for every other team in the AFC, they should be terrified of playing the Chiefs. The idea of playing the Chiefs in the postseason is a massive concern for them in a way that it is not for the Cincinnati Bengals, whether it's styles make fights, whether it's their global level of play. To me, I think the biggest concern about the Bengals heading into this week and the idea of the Chiefs game and their tough schedule over the rest of the season is that the Chiefs had a better shot at winning the AFC West than the Bengals did of winning the AFC North, given the presence of the Ravens. But now that seems like it might not be quite as scary of a proposition.
Catching the Ravens probably wasn't going to be that hard either way based on how the Ravens were playing, but it definitely gets a lot easier depending on how healthy Lamar Jackson is.
Sure.
But, I mean, I don't know that we need to get off of the Bengals yet. Like, we can move on to the Ravens eventually, but I still feel like the Bengals deserve some praise.
So what did we learn today that we noted assholes / cowards did not fully appreciate before we got the third item in a trend piece about the Bengals being better than the Chiefs?
We learned that Domonique is very smart and very right all the time, even when he's wrong.
Domonique was Jordan shrugging while Bill was talking for the podcast audience, and it was infuriating.
Allie, what you got?
What the hell?
I have a follow-up question, and in the lead up to the last episode of the Domonique Foxworth podcast, Domonique mumbled off screen. He goes, I was watching some Joe Burrow. That guy's a superstar. We don't talk about this enough. And today that was really obvious. And my question to you, Domonique, football genius, you, Bill Barnwell, football genius, and you, Pablo Torre.
Thank you.
Do you think Joe Burrow wrestled the MVP away from Patrick Mahomes today?
So Burrow got a really bad start to the season. And I think numbers-wise, it makes it challenging. But I like push back against numbers as the end-all be-all for the MVP argument.
I was with you.
Of course you don't like it.
I was with you for the first 2 minutes of the show. We were a team for 3 minutes, and this is how you betrayed me when I was setting you up for all this praise. Wow.
I think the numbers help, but the numbers come secondary. Like, I think that this is a Best Actors award. It's like, it's about the storyline. It's about who is the protagonist of this season. And it felt like Patrick Mahomes was. And I do think that is realistic to consider, depending on how the rest of these weeks go, that Joe Burrow, it's his job to lose. If he continues to play like this and they continue to win, he puts up numbers like this and they have this very tough schedule. They get a higher seed. They come back to win their division. I do think that he's a real MVP contender and should probably be in front of Patrick Mahomes.
Well, I was with you until the second part of that statement. There was a real big leap being made from he should be a contender, sure, no question there. He should be ahead of Patrick Mahomes was a huge jump made there.
You missed the if.
What's
you missed
the if?
that. The
What's
if
the
was
if?
like, if he continues to play like this and they come back and win their division against this very tough schedule. I guess the knock against him is the same reason why I believe in him, because he got some really damn good receivers, and Patrick Mahomes don't got that.
For sure. I'll throw it if Patrick Mahomes is sucked from the earth by aliens and doesn't exist anymore, then absolutely he can't be MVP. Maybe comeback player of the year if he comes back next year after being abducted by aliens. But
if Patrick Mahomes is sucked from the earth from aliens, I demand that we end the football season and
why?
find these aliens.
There's 31 other quarterbacks who are fine. The Niners have to win with Brock Purdy at quarterback. We're not going to make the Chiefs try to win with Chad Henne.
I knew those aliens were going to run too high safety. I knew it. We all saw it coming.
Rush 3, only
man.
rush 3. Is that what they did?
It does explain a lot of Russell Wilson. Maybe we got replaced by the alien Russell Wilson this year and did not get that too high programming. Here's why how I think Joe Burrow wins the MVP if it happens. We saw him win not a primetime game, but a game with national attention against another superstar quarterback or a team that everyone regards as a team that should be beating superstar quarterbacks in the Chiefs. Next month of the year, his schedule's not necessarily tough, but the teams he plays get national attention. It's the Bucks, it's the Patriots, it's the Bills, and then that Ravens game in Week 18 that might be deciding the AFC North. If Joe Burrow is coming up big game after game and winning those games with big plays in the fourth quarter, I think that can overcome the numbers gap between him and Mahomes for sure.
Joe Burrow for MVP if he goes undefeated and throws 3 touchdowns in the next 4 games.
As long as he does that, we're good.
If Joe Burrow can enter a time loop in which he is beating Patrick Mahomes every week for the next 4 weeks, you got to give it to Joe Burrow over Patrick Mahomes.
You have to. But here is my only issue with Joe Burrow. And it's not Joe Burrow's fault. It's our fault as fans and media. Joe Burrow gets compared to Joe Montana over and over again just because they have the same first name. Like, let's just be honest here. Like, if Joe Burrow was named Steve Burrow, we would not be making the same amount of Joe Montana comparisons. And just comparing
would we make Steve Young comparisons then?
No, because Steve Young's not right-handed, but that would be more likely. Like, Joe Burrow is great. Joe Burrow deserves his. I don't think you're making Joe Burrow Steve McNair comparisons.
I mean, Steve is the name.
Dante Burrow?
Dante Burrow, perhaps Billy Joe Burrow.
His big weapons.
Does Billy Joe Burrow be different? But I just think we should be comparing Joe Burrow to other quarterbacks besides Joe Montana, just because his name should not be why we make a comparison.
Brock Burrow, Alabaster is where we're headed next, I believe.
I mean, to be fair, Joe Burrow's numbers are way better than Joe Montana's, but I digress. Let's move on.
That's a little spicy.
The
next
game,
though. I mean,
different sport.
Numbers.
Yeah, it's just being a troll.
Numbers.
But let's move on to.
It's not like Joe Montana had good receivers or anything.
Right.
True.
Not at all. Let's move on to the 49ers, Joe Montana's team.
Mm-hmm.
Are they cooked without Jimmy G?
Nope.
Yep.
Nope.
You want to go first, or you want me to go first?
No, I just want to go nope and yup for the next.
You want to go nope? We can do nope and yep. That's fine. I'm happy.
You can
to
go.
Yep.
You can go.
Maybe.
Say some numbers.
Here, Pablo stepping with a maybe. Of course, he wants to be the coward in this debate. I'm not going to give you numbers for Brock Purdy. I don't need numbers to prove this. I just need history. The best case scenario for the Niners with a third string quarterback, with a backup who nobody believes in, is the 2017 Eagles, right? The Carson Wentz tears his ACL, Nick Foles comes in off the bench and leads them to a Super Bowl. But those Eagles were 11-2 when Carson Wentz went down against the Rams. They were loaded, and they already had the inside track on the number 1 seed in the NFC and that first round bye. And I think if you have a mediocre quarterback, you need that. You can't be exposed to games on the road. You want to have as few games as possible with that quarterback to win. The Niners, even though they won today, are not in that boat. They're a game ahead of the Seahawks, which is great for the NFC West, but they're 2 games behind the Vikings, and they're 3 games behind the Eagles. You're going to need Brock Purdy most likely to win at least 1, if not 2, games on the road in the postseason. And even if it's Kirk Cousins and the Vikings, I still think that's not going to happen.
I'm sorry. I'll let my Jimmy Garoppolo desire to shit talk Jimmy Garoppolo get in the way of some real analysis.
A lot of people love that.
The fact of the matter is, I thought that the same thing while Jimmy was a quarterback. And why
right.
I don't think that Brock Purdy is better. I guess the point that I was making is I don't think that they're in as much worse, or they're not in much worse shape than they were before, which is the same. It was like, I don't think Jimmy Garoppolo is going to be able to give you 3 of those games in a row that you're going to, or at least he's not going to be able to give you 1 of those games that you need at some point. And of course, Brock Purdy, I don't think he's going to be able to give you the games that you need in the playoffs. There's going to be one time when you need him to show up, and he's not going to be there.
But this is what's so fascinating. This is the case for why the 49ers are not right now. is that the Niners seem to be uniquely situated to deal with this problem.
Mm-hmm.
And Domonique mentioned some of it, but Fred Warner mentioned the rest of it. I mean, this is Fred Warner's quote after the game. He doesn't have to do too much. He has so many weapons on that side of the ball to get the ball to. His job is to just protect the football, end quote. And by the way, his job is also to play with leads provided to him by guys like Fred Warner. Like the defense in this game. I mean, the case for the Niners is this game. It was beating the Dolphins as they did in the way they did specifically, isn't it, Bill?
It is. But
Yeah.
I think it opens up a troubling possibility for the NFL, which is, does the Kyle Shanahan offense get too strong if they can win a Super Bowl with Brock Purdy
Absolutely.
as their quarterback? Like, this is a quarterback
Absolutely.
league. And if they can win with those weapons and that defense and Brock Purdy at quarterback, like, why would you sign any quarterback? Why don't you just have Kyle Shanahan himself play quarterback? Like, it opens up a very troubling can of worms for the NFL.
A
I don't know if they want to go
post-quarterback
down that
era
path.
is a terrifying future.
Well, McCaffrey was definitely a crutch that was very handy
Sure.
in this game. I do think that the defense, we need to take a moment to celebrate how good that defense was. Like, I thought the depth of, like, they weren't doing anything too complicated. They were like running their normal stuff, zones. And I was really excited and interested to see, like, what would Kyle Shanahan do to answer this version of his offense. And I came to find out that my guess is Kyle Shanahan had spent no time in the defensive meeting room, and D'Amico Ryans was like, you know what? We're going to do the same shit we've been doing all year. And that D-line was getting pressure. I thought the linebackers' depth, like their ability to stop the run, is what allows them then to have their linebackers get enough depth to take away the middle of the field. Then in the second half, it seemed like the Dolphins wanted to attack the outside edges, but like that's really hard. Those are much tougher throws. And when you're behind in Bosa is getting, that's Nick, that's the one there, right? And Nick is getting pressure, and the rest of that D-line is getting pressure. Like, it's a really tough task, especially when you're putting up points. So yeah, this team is really good, but the problem is at some point, like NFL defenses, they don't shut everybody down. At some point, they're going to give up 21, 24 points early in a game, and Brock Purdy's not going to have play action. He can't check down to Christian McCaffrey every snap. We're going to be like, all right, Purdy, pick this defense apart. And it ain't going to be Purdy.
It ain't going to be Purdy, is right. It was funny because this was so much like,
I'm just going to sit here and just bask in that. Yeah.
We're trying to get to a post Pablo university where we just make the puns Pablo would make coming in.
I thought about how to do, like, Brock Purdy sounds like a guy who is about to be, it got to a weird prison joke, and I'm like, I don't want to go there. It's like, why would he be called Purdy? It was like weird. Anyway.
I'm sorry, Pablo.
We're a couple months away from having an AI bot where we can just plug in NFL sports topics, and it'll come out with Pablo style puns in response. I mean, this reminded me a lot of the Packers game, right? Last year, where the Packers scored that early touchdown on the Niners, and it was, oh no, this is going to be a blowout. And then D'Amico Ryans shut them down for the entire game. Dolphins score a 75-yard touchdown on a throw over the middle of the field, the exact spot where Fred Warner was supposed to be able to take those passes away. And it was like, oh no, the Dolphins have all these answers. And then they didn't really have all those answers. The Niners were able to win doing the same stuff they do normally, pretty much, some changes here and there. But they are so good at taking that stuff away that, like you said, once the Dolphins tried to adjust, they didn't have that counterpunch. And I think there's a lot of teams in the NFL that don't have that counterpunch, even if they can attack what the Niners do well.
So the takeaway, though, from the Dolphins side of this game, right? Because this should have been if everything we're saying about Brock Purdy, whose name, I mean, the word cloud on today's just slate of programming is insane. Brock Purdy in 300-point font. But the fact is, Tua Tagovailoa, who was, on a heater, a true heater, as was his entire offense. Bill, Domonique, like, they should have beaten the Niners, right?
Yes.
Like, this is a worrisome thing for Mike McDaniel's Dolphins that this is how this game went, isn't it?
No. I mean, I think you lose your starting quarterback. The idea is that you should beat the 49ers, or you should beat the team that you're playing. Not if that team is the 49ers. Like, they didn't lose their defensive line. They didn't lose Warner. They did not lose McCaffrey or Deebo Samuel or George Kittle. they lost the player that we all kind of talk about as like the one that they can lose. Like,
Bill, are you noticing Domonique? I'm looking. It's if we can put the angel and the devil on Domonique's shoulders. On the one hand, it's the guy who hates Jimmy Garoppolo. It's the other guy who loves defense so much. Not hate's a strong word. The guy who doubts existentially whether Jimmy Garoppolo is a worthwhile.
If you put that guy on one shoulder, put the rest of serious football people on that shoulder with me. Like, I'm not. Don't make it out like I'm just being a Jimmy Garoppolo like hater. Jimmy's a wonderful human being, one of the best 40 quarterbacks in the world, and very handsome. But we all know who he is.
And on the other shoulder, is this glorious experiment where maybe we have the ultimate ability to isolate the power of a defense, which has to be exciting.
What I loved about Domonique's run there is that he just kept naming players. I want to see how many players he was going to get to before he was going to throw Jimmy J. Like, were you going to get to Robbie Gould? Were you going to get to the punter? Were you going to get to Jason Verrett, who hasn't played really in 2 years? Like, there were a lot of guys who were willing to name before you got to Jimmy Garoppolo on that list. That is legit. That's a legit one I would throw out there. I mean, if you're the Niners, are you just moving forward with Brock Purdy? Are you trying to move heaven and earth to try and sneak somebody on your roster? Like, do you think that you can win with Brock Purdy because you were winning with Jimmy Garoppolo and you don't try to do more than Josh Johnson?
I mean, obviously they're gonna make. I mean, I would assume they're gonna like make some calls, but I don't know who there is to get. You're trying to like steal a backup from somewhere. I don't know who it is.
They're about to steal some people off of television, man. Off of podcasts.
Oh no, Pablo, are you breaking a story here?
I'm just saying, if I'm the Niners, man, you're calling some people that are in my Rolodex and stay the away. I need people to make content. I don't need them throwing passes.
Do you think Jimmy would be a good ESPN daily guest, Pablo?
Nope.
He's a bit limited.
Chance. Depends if it's a video podcast.
Yeah, maybe. So Alex Smith is out of there. RG3,
let's talk about the Dolphins and a Janice Shanahan disciple, because that's the other side of the coin of this game, where they didn't play very well. And do you view them differently after their loss to the 49ers and Brock Purdy?
I mean, Armstead wasn't there. That mattered a lot. Tyreek Hill still went off. They couldn't put up many points. And I think Tua struggled at times. Like, his passes were off target. I saw the tip interception and I wanted to blame it on anybody but Tua. But I was like, that's a terrible throw. Like, it was way behind Tyreek Hill. That's on you, buddy. So, yeah, like, he's been incredible up until now.
Yeah.
He's due for a bad game. All quarterbacks have him. All players have him. So, like, I'm not ready to like downgrade them as not a legitimate contender, but I mean, yeah, it's a tough matchup against a really talented team who also like kind of fully understands your football philosophy.
I mean, yeah, but you know, I would say that this was a reminder that there's more of a floor than I think it's felt like this year for the Dolphins with Tua. Like, it's been so smooth on a week-to-week basis against these bad defenses, typically, and bad football teams. So they've gotten ahead. They've been able to throw the ball wherever they want to. And there hasn't been that stretch where it's like, oh no, the wheels are coming off. Tua's throwing interceptions. They're not moving the ball consistently. They were 0 for on third down in this game. I don't know if they're 0 for 7 or 0 for 8, but they did not pick up a third down conversion in this game. A helpful graphic is telling me, podcast listeners, that the Dolphins were 0 for 7 on third down, their first game without a third down conversion since 2017. And I think that is what this sort of reminded me of, is that, yes, Tua is playing much better. He's not going to have games where he throws a couple interceptions, where they're a mess, where he fumbles. Like, that's not going to happen every single week. But in a situation where he doesn't have Torre Armstead, who, by the way, has not played a full 16-game season, I think, since the Obama administration, where the offense does get behind early, or they do struggle to get consistently moving the ball. They did score the touchdown on the first play, or still weren't behind early, but they did get behind as the game went along. And they were not able to catch up. They had the deep hit to Tyreek Hill, but Tua missed open receivers in this game that didn't result in interceptions. He was very sloppy until the fourth quarter. And I think that is my concern here is that, when the chips are down, like we saw Tua come back against the Ravens, but that was a backup secondary. How often is Tua going to be able to come back in those situations when he does have to play the Bills in a shootout or the Chiefs in a shootout or the Bengals in a shootout? Because we know that's probably coming in the postseason.
When the chips are down. I like it. Bill,
That's a
Bill
classic.
Barnwell.
I've never actually seen chips down before. I don't know what that means, but
I
it seems like
assume
something
that
you
is
would
like
say.
a poker thing, right? It's like you're all in, your chips. Like I don't know.
We
I
have
thought it
a
was
lot
gambling
of
thing, like the chips are
chip-driven
down.
metaphors. We have chips
do.
on
On
your
your shoulder?
shoulders. Yep.
Okay.
We
Give me
got
another one.
chips being down.
Okay, one more.
Yeah,
3. We need 3 for a
Pa-
trend.
Pablo was really cocky about that one,
Hold
and
on.
did not
was,
think
and
anybody
he
was
had
going to call
nothing.
him on a third one.
No.
And so
One more.
Computer
well,
chip.
live betting is minus 270. Pablo's not going to come up with a third one here.
I'll take that bet too.
And
All right, I think we need to move on
rapidly
to the
rising.
Ravens.
Chippin' Dale, Rescue
Oh.
Rangers. Is there anything on that?
Do you feel good about that jump pass? The Chippendale jump pass? Is that a good one?
Now I feel bad about it. Now I
Okay.
feel bad.
Oh,
about it.
no.
I think that's the time to move on. Do you guys still view the Ravens as
Chip off
Super
the
Bowl
old block.
contenders?
There it is. I knew there was something there. Oh, that's a Rescue
Well,
Ranger. That's what a
are
Rescue
these
Ranger
Ravens
looks like.
chips off the old Ravens block?
Oh.
They're old for sure. I don't know
For
if
the
they're
podcast audience, Domonique is Alexander Madisoning right now. He's just twerking.
doing the Usain Bolt.
Yeah,
You're welcome.
yeah. Deserved. Wow, that was exhilarating.
It
That was
felt good.
probably the most erotic thing I can think of that's happened on Debatable without Spencer being involved.
Oh my gosh. Ravens.
So the
They're
Ravens
bad,
happened.
guys.
Yeah, they happened
They're-
to be bad today.
Yeah.
They scored with 28 seconds left to beat the Broncos, but it was 10-9. And you can extrapolate from there how things generally felt in the course of this game unfolding, Bill.
Yeah, I mean, 10-9. Okay, you had a bad day, but this is the Broncos. And yes, the Broncos have a legitimately really good defense. So I'm not surprised the Broncos were struggling. But this was kind of a miraculous win for the Ravens. Like, it felt like, oh, this is same old Ravens losing a close game. It kind of felt impressive that they pulled this one out. But the thing you brought up that I know Domonique wants to get to, and I feel the same way about, is you said this game was a struggle. And it is not just a 1 week thing with these Ravens. That makes me think that I should not be optimistic about their chances.
Yeah, the Ravens have been really good for a real long time, and that affords them some respect
Yes.
that we don't afford to other teams.
Yep.
And this year, they've had leads in a lot of games that they ended up losing, and I think we are like, all right, this team's really good for a long time. And then they have these games that it feels like they are in control of, but they blow at the end. But they're really a good team. We got to stop. We got to stop, guys.
Bam.
We got to stop pretending. We got to stop. I've been lying to myself because I like Lamar and I'm from Baltimore. My son loves the Ravens. I played for the Ravens. And I'm like, nah, they're good, guys. They're all right. They're not. They're not. I mean, I don't know. I've watched enough games to be like, they're just match them up against the AFC playoff teams, all of them. Who you think they're going to beat? Who would you put legitimate money on in a one-on-one neutral site? Forget it. Forget neutral site at home. Who do you think that they're going to beat? And I would not bet anything, any amount of money that I cared about that they would beat the Chiefs, the Bills, the Bengals, the Titans, the Dolphins,
the Jets. Would you bet? Would you pick them against the Jets?
They did beat the Jets early in the season, but that was Joe Flacco.
The Flacco Bowl. Yeah, would they beat the Jets?
I'll give them the Jets. I'll give them the Jets because I want to be able to go back to my hometown at some point in my life. So yes, you guys would beat the Jets.
So
I would not. I'm not saying the Jets. I don't think I can put the Jets on that pedestal. Absolutely not.
I had to pick somebody, Bill.
I appreciate that. I understand.
But this is the thing that I'm curious about because I used
it's frustrating too and disappointing.
I remember when I used to get yelled at for claiming that the Ravens were not good because the Ravens were like choking away leads late in games and all this and that. What's different about this version that you guys have observed over the last several weeks? Because that's where I left them.
Yeah.
But what's actually been worse now?
Okay, so I'll try to make it real straightforward. In the beginning of the year, they were good in the first 3 quarters and terrible in the fourth quarter. Now they're kind of bad in the first 3 quarters and just kind of bad in the fourth quarter too. Like, yes, they came back and won this game, and they held up on defense for most of this game against the Russell Wilson Broncos, which is a whole other conversation. But Lamar has been struggling this offense has been struggling, I should say, with Lamar as the focal point of the offense for 2 months now. First 3 weeks of the year, we were sitting here saying, oh, they figured out the blitz. Lamar's number 1 in QBR against the blitz. They're going to be great this year. He's like 20th in QBR since week 4. He's got a worse QBR than Kyler Murray, who has been the subject of like figuring out who's going to get fired in Arizona. He's been worse than Jacoby Brissett. He's been around the same QBR as Matthew Stafford, who's been breaking down piece by piece as the season goes along. That's where we're at with this offense. And we can talk about blaming the organization for not bringing in wide receiver help. We can talk about the weapons that aren't there at running back. But at the end of the day, like if you're asking me, you talk about Jimmy Garoppolo and how replacing him with Brock Purdy didn't seem like it made much of a difference. This game is not, Tyler Huntley was not great, but it's not like the offense was looking that much better with Lamar than it looked with Tyler Huntley against a very good defense on Sunday.
So first of all, that flight back to Denver had to be miserable. There probably
terrible.
was a fight or two on that. Like I can't imagine that they flew home. But back to the Ravens. Yeah, to everything Bill said, and
It sucks.
also it's like there's so many problems with them that it's like the game, the play design and the play calling, on top of the fact that Lamar is not playing well. Maybe he's not playing well because they don't have any like receivers that scared anyone except for Deshaun Jackson, who like is on the Tom Brady program as far as age is concerned. But we also need you to run a lot, and he's their best deep threat. It's like a lot of issues with that offense. And then you put on top of it that Lamar is taking shots at people. Or not taking shots, but I guess clapping back at randos on the internet. It just feels like things are in a bad place. This defense, it's not been good. They shut down Russell, but I mean, Russell's not good anymore. It's just, I don't know. I wish I had some coherent thought other than it sucks because we like watching Lamar be great, and he's not great right now, and he hasn't been.
Here's the problem, though. Their next 4 weeks, they play the Steelers twice. Steelers are not a good football team. They play the Browns, and they play the Falcons. Now, I know they almost lost to the Broncos today. No guarantee that they're going to win all 4 of those games, but there is a chance that they win all 4 of those games. And we have this kind of false hope that we look like they know what they're doing, even though I don't think they're going to be any better in reality. Just they'll get lucky by playing some bad football teams and rack up some wins because of it.
Does
they
it
almost
feel
lost to the Panthers too? That was
right? So you just described a world though in which the Ravens are like 12-4.
Yeah.
And is it just me or do records feel especially meaningless this season? I mean, you guys have watched a lot more football than I have, I think, in your lives collectively. It just feels like the numbers, speaking of pushing back on numbers, it feels like those numbers feel increasingly useless when it comes to how we actually feel about these teams.
This is Pablo's way of saying the Jaguars are the best team in football, and frankly, I don't think he's wrong.
Yeah, I mean, this is a big shot at stats don't matter because the number one stat is wins and losses, and clearly it doesn't matter. They're just like
not to Pablo.
Teams. Not to Pablo at all.
Pablo, the NFL is just a series of narratives coalescing and running past one another. The actual games themselves might as well not even be played in Pablo's world.
That's right.
It's a real Pablo gang up podcast, and I like it. I'm really proud of it.
It's like Pablo is this guy who termed a phrase called "trust the process," where results don't matter. It's all about the process. Who would ever have known that results don't
I'm
matter?
sorry for being the only enlightened person in the entire sports industry. Apologies.
In light years behind. Let's move on to New York. Which New York team do you feel better about after their performance today?
Okay, so to recap what happened today, the Jets lost a game they should have won against the Vikings. Are we going to say that much? Because the Jets outgained the Vikings by like 200 yards, right? Justin Jefferson was held to like fewer than 50 yards, although he had that big touchdown at the end. Or in the fourth quarter. That was disappointing. And the Giants tied the Commanders, which feels like a funny thing that no one actually enjoyed watching. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, it was pretty grimy. I'm not gonna lie. I watched a lot of that game, and it was not a pleasant experience in the slightest.
So I rewatch a lot of games before we get on here.
Yes.
And I knew we were going to talk about Giants Commanders. I refused. I was like, no, I'm not. Like, you remember Mike Rowe on Discovery?
Dirty
Jobs.
Dirty Jobs.
Ain't for me. That was a job. I was like, I started to text Mike and be like, hey, I need you to come in here and rewatch this game for me and tell me what you see, because I can't look at it. I might throw up. I got a weak stomach, Mike Rowe. I got a weak football stomach. Like, I like pimple popper videos. I watch surgeries on YouTube. Like, I'm into all that. I watched somebody like extract an ingrown toenail earlier today. I'm into it. But you know what I won't do? I won't watch no Giants Commanders 2020 tie. You could have told me anything happened in that game, and you're like, yeah.
It feels,
I watched the Jets play though.
Yeah, I did. I watched that Vikings Jets game, and it felt like again, not to be postmodern about wins and losses in a sincere way, but it felt like, I don't know, once you have Mike White as your quarterback and you're like in this game, like, can you really be that mad at your whole experience? Like, were you really, really mad that you lost the game against a 10-2 team because Mike White didn't deliver? It felt like, on balance, you should feel good about the defense. You should feel good that you're competitive. You know, you're in the hunt. Like, feel fine. You should be fine about this.
This was not a Jimmy Garoppolo game where Mike White did nothing to contribute and the running game of the defense. Mike White threw for almost 400 yards in this game. They had him drop back 57 times to throw the football, and he hit Braxton Berrios, who is a bizarrely important part of the red zone offense, for what should have been a lead-taking touchdown, only for Braxton Berrios to drop the football. Mike White held his own in this game. He was not perfect. He made mistakes, to be sure, but it wasn't like the Jets had no hope of winning because they had Mike White at quarterback. He was less than the defense, but he still did something.
White Mike made some impressive throws that game. The second interception is like, okay, I don't know that you got to put it up. You got to give it a chance. I don't hate that interception. And I mean, the pass to Berrios, I think, was a little late and a little bit behind Berrios, but still very catchable. But I don't know, like, to complete 31 passes for 369, 369. We need a cutoff, because 369 is not almost 400.
What are you talking about?
So you said almost 400. Almost doing a lot of work. Almost is carrying a lot of weight. You can't tell somebody almost 400.
What is your almost cutoff for 400?
I like the idea
of 90s, 80s,
I like 95,
the idea maybe. Yeah,
Bill, I can't go to my mom and say I got almost 100 on my test and I really got a C.
Exactly.
That feels like I probably can't get away with that.
Domonique watches a video and say, "Oh, they almost popped that pimple," and good chunk of the pimple is gone.
I will not take that disrespect. I never watch almost pimple pop videos. We watch till completion, baby. We watch till completion.
Whose completion exactly, Domonique? There's yours.
Everybody's, baby. Everybody's. I'm generous. Everybody completing.
I was about to point out that the mom who I brought grades to is a dermatologist in real life, but now I feel disgusted on every level by this conversation.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, I like, we didn't talk about the Giants very much. It's embarrassing, right? Like, I mean, I'm going to throw 30-second Giants content out there. You don't have to take a look at it.
Put a clock on.
Put a clock on, please. Giants all year, we're saying, oh, listen, yeah, we don't have this formula where we win late games, where we get lucky in the fourth quarter. We're a really good team. All right. You've now lost a couple games in a row. You get to the fourth quarter with the lead. You just have to close it out. Do the thing you did all year. And You have not done that in this game. You let Taylor Heineke come back and tie this game up. You went to overtime and had 3 drives to win this game, and Daniel Jones could not do it. You got 10 seconds left. QBR of 12.8 in the fourth quarter and overtime. You didn't do it. I don't want to hear about the Giants if they can't beat the Commanders at home.
Well done. I honestly don't. I think you went a little over, but that's fine. You got some positive stuff on the Giants?
No.
That's the real challenge. Like, anybody can go negative on the Giants. You got 30 seconds of positive on the Giants? That's the real challenge.
Give me 30 seconds of negative on the Giants. If you
didn't lose to a guy who showed up LARPing as like, what's that show? That freaking, what's his name? Pocket watch guy.
Oh my gosh.
Peaky Blinders
are not
Peaky
great.
Blinders?
Yeah, that one. Don't watch that show. You know where I'm going.
Nobody gets surgery done on them in Peaky Blinders, so you know Domonique's not watching it.
Thanks, Bill. Thanks for trying to come to Pablo's rescue, because, man, did he peter out there.
Guys,
just sputtered to the end, just tripping. There's too much podcasting. Just so podcasted out.
Pablo, load balance for Pablo.
I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing that I'm increasingly shameless about when I'm just like turning the ball over, but I'm not even gonna apologize anymore.
It's fine. You never needed a Christmas break so badly. Can we get
for the love of
days
God
off for Pablo?
Please
stop recording his voice into a microphone, but not yet. First, college football. Spencer Hall, find it in you, Pablo. Do more talking.
There are very miniature figurines literally in Spencer's hands, but figuratively, we ask him to assess and to construct the diorama that is college football at the start, Domonique.
Yeah, Georgia, real big, real mean, real bad, and also number one for a reason, because I'm going to go ahead and answer the question. They got it right. And most of the time they do.
The committee, the college football playoff committee. The committee.
They got it right. And they got it right most of the time. And not because they're good at this, but because they can't be bad. There's only 4 teams, right? And Bud Elliott, a writer for 247, a video guy, has one of my favorite sayings, which is that 4 is a dumb number, because there's usually one team that's just going to get destroyed.
Yeah.
Because usually in college football, there's like 3 elite teams, maybe 2, but almost never 4. Like almost never 4.
Why don't we expand the playoffs? It'll make it better, guys.
Listen, I like expanding the playoff because it basically says, hey, maybe someone will have an accident. That's it. You're just opening up all of this room so that a really good team can get eliminated. And that's what we're doing with 12. With 4, what you're doing is saying, these are the 3 best teams in America, and this is a stunt dummy, and amazing things are going to happen to this dummy. We're just going to watch it get thrown off of a building. We're going to watch like it get hit by cars. All of this, like
that is the stunt dummy university to you, Spencer. How dare
that is
you.
correct. Ohio State, by the way, shouts out to them because they wanted this chance. Okay, cool, you got it. And guess what you have to do? You have to climb out of hell all the way to the top of the mountain. You got to go through Georgia, and you got to do a rematch with potentially Michigan if that happens. And frankly, by the way, this story isn't done because we said, okay, well, there's a potential rematch with Michigan. What makes you think TCU isn't the most dangerous team in America right now when no one's sure how good they are? I know what kind of a fight I'm getting into with Georgia. I know what kind of a fight I'm getting into with Michigan. I've watched TCU play probably 6 full games this year. I never have any idea what's going to happen against anyone.
Domonique, my takeaway from TCU, of course, losing to Kansas State on Saturday is Max Duggan is just like pacing around his room muttering that he didn't bang his body hard enough into a line of bodies. Oh, God. And I feel like, Ohio State, look forward to that. Look forward to that guy getting his revenge.
I think the Ohio State-Georgia game is interesting in part because it's the most interesting game of this first round to me. I understand why TCU might be interesting because we don't know. But I think Ohio State-Michigan game or Ohio State-Georgia game, and I keep saying this, messing up the teams, because it's the same as the game that we saw before, is like, except a little bit more violent, as we felt like Michigan was a little bit more, like a little tougher and a little bit more aggressive and aggro, all the football terminology that we love, a little bit more of that top dog. And now Georgia is that times 2. And I want to see Ohio State, see if they have an answer for it, because they've been hearing this for a while now, or a couple weeks at least, that you're not tough enough. You got bullied, and you're a soft team that likes to throw the ball around. We'll see if they really are that bunch, or if they want to change, if they can just hit the switch and be tough guys now.
It is an intriguing matchup in one respect, and it's this: that if you're going to move the ball against Georgia, I suggest you don't run it. They don't really let that happen a whole lot. They've got, if you try to do that, Jalen Carter picks you up like a trophy and just carries you around
That was great.
like a toddler. Yeah.
With one finger in the air as well in his other
Oh,
hand.
yeah. No. Letting you know, like giving you the Dikembe. Like, no, this is not done.
So many great college football moments this weekend.
You might be able to pass on them. You might, because I think they're like 50th in terms of total pass defense. So if there's any wiggle room there at all, like some people are like, yeah, you got to establish the front. No, you don't. No, just pass. CJ Stroud should pass like 700 times in this game, and he should hit Marvin Harrison Jr. as many times as possible.
I hate to like bring some sadness to this college football playoff, but I was made sad by being robbed of Caleb Williams in the college football playoffs. And I guess Caleb robbed us of himself, like, because he didn't play well. That defense couldn't stop Utah. It was a mess. Like, no, I'm sorry, Utah. I'm sure you guys are excited. Your players deserve it. Your coaches, I'm sure all like 3,000 people that live in the state of Utah are hyped. But I'm not. Can't name none of your players. Don't want you ruining my excitement. I want to see Caleb do his best Patrick Mahomes impersonation against top-level defenses. And I guess I saw it. And he didn't do it well against your top-level defense. So, Utah, congratulations, Pac-12 champs, I guess.
What you need to know is this, that yes, it's unfortunate that Caleb Williams suffered I think he messed with his hamstring on the first long run of the game, and that kind of took his run element out of it. And without the run element, that greatly affects what they do in the run game and in some of the pass game. And Caleb Williams was essentially from behind. Like the minute that happened, they were a one-dimensional offense, and a very good one-dimensional offense. But nothing that could keep up with Utah or dodge the kind of pressure that Utah is able to throw at you. Please respect the Utah Utes. They are the bully of the Pac-12, much like the bully at your high school. They're not necessarily the most successful, but they're going to find somebody and they're going to beat them until they make them stop. This was Oregon. If you remember that Utah was like consistently they beat Oregon twice last year, and Oregon finally beat them. And then they just transitioned to like, well, who's next? No, that nerd. But I wanted to say, this is awesome. Like everyone's like, oh, poor Utah, we didn't get to see Caleb. Okay, you got to see playing Caleb during the season. Yeah. And also, I got my favorite thing, which is Utah coming out of nowhere to hit someone in the head. That's my favorite thing. It's like off the top rope Utah. Absolutely love it. We wanted to see the pretty thing, right? We wanted to see the national thing, the global thing. We wanted to see the significant thing. And Utah's like, I only care about the block.
Yeah, see, Domonique, I'm reminded that Spencer is a sicko. I keep on forgetting this.
Yeah.
But if you're a real football head, like if you're a real college football sicko, Utah's absolutely your thing. A quarterback.
I never claimed to be. I'm not a sicko.
Right, yeah.
I want the pretty stuff.
I'm gonna list it. I know that Alistair has to have an interjection, but here, a quarterback who can rush straight ahead and not sideways. Don't go sideways. No, he can go rush right ahead, and he can throw a 5-yard out to a tight end from Australia. That's what he can do. I love it. Just a gigantic utility truck of a quarterback who got things done. It was beautiful. It was everything I love about college football. There's a guy who's going to be second string in the CFL, and he beat someone who's going to be a 10-year starter in the NFL.
God. Yeah.
So, speaking of pretty things.
Is that what you're going to do?
No, am I wrong that I wanted to see Alabama make the playoff and have a 2-loss Alabama team that hadn't beaten anyone in the top 20 all season? Terrify the other 3 teams, because they would have been shaking in their little boots if Alabama made the playoffs.
Well, that's what
you know it. I know it. We all know it.
Well, that's what Saban said, right? Saban basically did the thing where he's like, "What would Vegas have put us at? Would we have been underdogs?"
You see that? That was called a yawn because I'm tired of Alabama. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
But this is in fact the quote that elicited literal and figurative yawns. if we played these teams in question, would we be underdogs in the game or not? And Spencer, the answer would be no, right? Just to be clear about that. Like, this is not the standard that the committee uses, apparently, but the argument that Saban is making is a correct one. It's just not the one that they care about.
I mean, so based on what? Like, based on the history of Alabama is why they would be favorites. It's not based on the results of this season. And I do think Alabama obviously is good enough to beat all of these teams, but they had 2 losses and they didn't win their conference championship game. They didn't even make it to the conference championship game. And so maybe I'm not an Alabama hater generally. Like, I like watching Alabama play. I root for them in a lot of games. But when they come up as short as they did this year, and a lot of games that they could have lost, but they barely won, and we know style points mattered, and several games against, or 2 games against big-time opponents that they blew, like, yeah, you guys, maybe you could have gotten in here and scared these teams. Maybe you would have won everything. But the fact of the matter is, you didn't do the things you were supposed to do. And so you left it up. I feel like Saban, of all people, I guess he has to advocate for his players, but I assume that this is something he's saying publicly, but deep in his heart and in behind closed doors, he's saying we didn't do what we were supposed to do, and y'all didn't. So I'm sorry. I want to see y'all in it next year, maybe.
I love this opportunity. Like, what's he supposed to say, Domonique? Is he supposed to be like, yeah, no, we ain't got it. Like, we're Capital One Bowl. That's what we want. Put us in the Citrus Bowl. That's about
throw
our
some
level,
mayonnaise
guys.
on me.
Hey, don't you disrespect the Duke's Mayo Bowl. A great university is going to get that mayo.
Oh yeah.
Go Terps, baby. But this is to me like Alabama not only lost that game to Tennessee, which I get, that's a tough road game. It was against a Tennessee team that was peaking. They lost a terrible game to LSU. Like, they lost a clanker to LSU. And that LSU team, I know, transitive properties don't prove anything necessarily about the team, but it's very hard to look at a team that got waxed by Georgia and go,
right,
that beat Alabama.
Yeah.
What would Georgia do to this current Alabama squad? Also, man, I don't think Bryce Young, like if I, we talk about teams and institutions and coaches, players in terms of what you go, well, what do you owe the rest of us? Nothing. Like, Bryce Young's done everything I could ever want to see or ask of him on the football field. If he came back and is like, yeah, I'm going to skip the bowl game, please do it. Go ahead. Take care of yourself. Go get ready for the draft. You can't give anything else to this university, right? Because you did
nothing else they want. You think that they're you're gonna get written down in the history books because you get a bowl championship? No, go ahead, take a break, Bryce.
Get on with it. All right, don't because he already took a beating this year. How
dare we get stuck on Alabama the one year that we don't have to be stuck on Alabama? Like, there has to be something else more interesting in this. Like, I'm gonna pick Georgia. You guys, there are no double picks. You guys can pick who you think is gonna win. Double picks aren't allowed. I took them.
Ooh, I want to know, like, who in your mind in this playoff field, like, needs to be taken down a peg? Who do you think is riding a little too high on their hog right now, where you're like, someone needs to speak truth to this particular power?
I think these are 4 unusually honest teams. Yeah. I would have said Ohio State prior to the Michigan loss.
Exactly.
But terms have been dictated. It's pretty clear what you are and what you need to work on and what you need to be. Also, as I've said, narratively, if Ohio State wants to prove us all wrong, the door's open.
Yeah.
Okay. It goes like that path goes straight up, right? You can cuss, right? Straight the up.
Yes, like it was necessary.
No, I mean, it like straight up does not, it does not describe how steep the path that they have, but also how cool it would be if they pulled it off. Like, if I were to write the ultimate narrative for a team and be like, hey, prove it after undergoing like a terrible defeat to a rival, what would it be? Rematch against that rival and beating the standard. That would be it. Is it going to happen? Hell no. I think Georgia's going to Bane break them. I think they're going to do like the Batman knee drop on them. Okay.
Can we just live in this world for a second? Please don't ruin this with Dark Knight Returns or Rises or whatever analogies that you're doing. Just for a second, let's live in the reality that something happens and Georgia loses and Michigan wins, Ohio State wins. Like, is our country going to be literally divided because the Midwest is going to go up in smoke at the idea of Michigan versus Ohio State in the national championship? Like, we had Georgia versus Alabama. That's fine. That's over here in the South. They do that a lot. But Michigan versus Ohio State in a national championship, I cannot imagine a more miserable, cold middle of the country. Everyone's fighting all until the game actually happens.
Do you know how many suitcases of beer we're going to need? Domestic beer. We're going to need so many. I don't mean like a 6-pack or no, you need a suitcase. You need the like 30-pack. The rack is what you're going to need. I cannot imagine a human being under more pressure than Ryan Day. I cannot imagine a human being who is going to be weirder for a sustained period of time than Jim Harbaugh leading up to that game. Like just mental off.
What do you think?
Planet.
Yeah, wait. So what do you think? What do you think Jim Harbaugh is going to be like? Give me a specific brand of weirdness, as we've been trying to classify all the types of weird in college football.
Okay, so I went and watched a YouTube video that is a 2-hour and 40-minute clinic of Harbaugh talking about. This is when he was I think he was at San Diego, UCSD, and he was the coach there, and he was really good. It's one of the reasons that he eventually bumped up to the Stanford gig, but he has he has an overhead projector, so it's very old school, and he has like 10 coaches he's talking to, right? So very intimate. And he says, the first rule about being a quarterback, and he has, this like unblinking, lidless stare facing everyone else. He goes, the first rule about being a quarterback is, I must win. I must win. And then he pauses and goes, I must win. And he hits the overhead projector and breaks it. This is on YouTube. You can go look it up. And he breaks it. And that's the first thing he does. And you're like, this is when he was like coaching in an FCS.
In my mind, Jim Harbaugh is giving that speech with the projector, and behind him are big block letters in red. They just say Jim, like it's a TED Talk.
I appreciate.
And he's just lecturing. I think we're done here. Alabaster, are we done here?
I think other than that, and me saying that I don't know why Dion took the Colorado job, but it's neat. It's interesting.
Gosh, we're not even going to talk about that, huh? Maybe next week.
More on that next week.
So much to say.